Hello, my name is Jennifer. Welcome to Stories from the Earth. This is episode 18. I'm here with my co-host Ellen.
Hello.
And today we are talking to our friend Jordan Hughes. Jordan is a licensed massage therapist, artist, intuitive tarot reader, and and we're also going to talk in depth about self-care. And so we are really excited to have you. So thank you for coming on, Jordan.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Jordan's business is called Crescent Moon Healing Arts. And all the links will be in the show notes and in the description of this video if you're watching us on YouTube.
Jordan, why don't you give us a background on why you even came to do what it is you do, like your inspiration, what drew you into healing arts?
Yeah, well, I've kind of always been interested since I was a kid. When I was in middle school, I would make kind of bath experiences for my friends. So I would have them come over and I'd set a bath up for them, and I'd have a foot bath and some crock pots with rocks in them. My dad was always like, "What? Why is the crock pot in your room?" I was like, "Oh, just massaging my friends." Yeah, so that was one thing I would do with my friends. And two, I think part of it, like part of the way that I got drawn into the healing arts was through, I would say childhood trauma has a lot to do with it. When I was younger, we were in a Church of God, so it was like really evangelical. They did the like praying for people and stuff like that. And even though a lot of that experience was super damaging for me because am I'm gay and I grew up in the South as a gay. Um, it was something that gave me the belief that there was the possibility of hands-on healing and kind of got me interested in energy work from a young age.
Like it became part of your own self-healing and self-exploration to kind of launch.
Yeah, too, like that's part of what got me interested in massage was like the energy work aspect to it. Because even though I no longer identify with the beliefs that I grew up with, that still was something that ended up carrying through just in a different flavor aspect.
Yeah. So did they do like hands-on like I don't know what it's called, but there is an element of that
laying on
hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a lot of that. And when I was at that church, I never really witnessed any results from it. We didn't really have anyone who seemed to like miraculously get healed. But I guess me being in like a child state where it was those formative years, I was like, oh, okay, this is totally a thing. And then when I got older, I was like, oh, it is a thing. It's just for me a different experience. Like nothing against them or anything. Just for me, it took on a different form. Like a huge part of what led me into seeking healing practices to heal myself was with that level of trauma and to like growing up gay in the Bible Belt in the South in a very not just a Christian household, but a very extremist Christian household where you're kind of taught that being gay is wrong and just pretty much like it was repeated to me as I was a child that gay people didn't even deserve to live. So from a young childhood age, I was kind of ingrained with this belief that like I wasn't enough, like I would never be good enough, and that there was something wrong with me. So while that was an extremely damaging experience like young on, it did kind of create that need in me to heal myself. But eventually, as I kept going through the process, I ended up finding out that what I needed to heal wasn't the fact that I was gay or the fact that I was the way that I was. It was the actual trauma that I needed to heal from being told that I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So that, yes, yeah, had to do a lot of that.
And it kind of like if have like if you've been told that and then you come to realize that that's not true, and then maybe you come to accept that like I am actually fine, it helps with the deprogramming. It helps with that pulling away. It helps because you're discerning what is actually something I've just been told, or what is actually more closer to something that like is true for me, or is or something that I find is makes more sense for me in my life and in the world. So
yeah, for sure. And two, like it gives you this kind of, like they call it the gay awakening in the LGBT community.
Okay.
Like it's kind of like you like when you realize that and you innately know, and like you have, or at least in my experience, there was the process of trying to like pray the gay away and things like that, and it didn't really work, of course, because that's not something that happens.
Right. Yeah.
Then you realize, and two, like you start to realize like these feelings that I have, they're natural. And when that happens, you're like, oh, well, if this is not true, that they've been telling me this, but I have this felt lived experience of something different, then what else isn't true? So it kind of shatters the entire like illusion that things are black and white, because they're just not.
You want a quest, a bigger quest.
Yeah. It definitely wasn't easy, but it's one that I'm glad that I had, because I would probably be still stuck in that same level of shame and thinking, because in that type of religious extremism, there's always something wrong with you, and you're always trying to make up for that, regardless if you're gay or not.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And I know from talking to other people that your experience, you're not alone. A lot of people have had this same experience, come from a very religious, very background, and been, have been gay, or even trans or whatever, and they have broken away. Sometimes it's taken them a while. Like a lot, like years and years.
It's admirable that the biggest challenge is recognizing there's a problem, right? So like real that you needed to shift to become more of who you really are, and that's like that, to know and recognize that that's okay. But then you took it a step further, which is admirable, in that, okay, you were working on yourself, but seeing value in the give back of being able to then help other people too is really nice.
Yeah, it kind of, I think that part of like what made me want to give that to other people was, it's just, there's something wonderful and powerful about being able to feel yourself change. And like, two, it shows you a path that you didn't know you could take. And there's just something nice about being able to share that with other people, because sometimes people don't even realize what is possible for them in the realms of like healing themselves. And it's just really nice to show people the possibilities that there are with the different tools that are out there. I think therapy definitely helped a lot with me deprogramming. Yeah.
In those kinds of environments too, like be it, you know, psychological therapy, but even like massage and bodywork, acupuncture, chiropractic, those more sort of intimate settings, and I say intimate as opposed to like the sterility of like a doctor's office, it gives people a bit more of a safe space to maybe let some guards come down that they might not have even realized they had when they walked in, but then they relax into it, and it's like sometimes the floodgates can open, and
Yeah.
sometimes it even catches people by surprise, but then it's like they process it and it's like, wow, yeah, I feel better now. Didn't know I had all that in me.
Well, too, like the thing that really got me interested in massage was the first time I received a massage, I was stunned. Not only like I was really surprised about how instantly better my muscles felt. Like I had a lot of injuries that doctors had seen me for, and I'd even had like traditional therapies for the injuries. They didn't touch the pain at all, and a massage therapist was like, "Oh, it's actually here instead." And I got a massage and I didn't have the problem anymore. That, and then being able to actually, because with the childhood trauma that I experienced, I have what's called CPTSD, so it's complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, massage therapy, that first massage that I got, was able to put me in my body and make me feel safe in my body. And that was really nice to feel my nervous system be like, okay, everything's fine. Like let's relax and take a deep breath. So
Kind of like grounding and being like, oh, here you are.
Well, it gave
it's
you
like, oh, my body.
well, it gave you like a safe. You felt safe.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to run, so yeah, like, or hide or something like that, like, and
yeah, it got me into rest and digest state, and I was like, oh, this is nice. You can actually rest. So yeah, that experience was so amazing. I was like, I want to do this for other people. Like I want to be able to give someone a massage and help their muscles feel better. And like people in a lot of ways don't even realize that a massage can do that. So it really, receiving that massage made me an advocate, and I was like, I definitely want to be able to do this for people in their lives, because I feel like it's such a valuable tool to be able to help someone's muscles and their nervous system relax at the same time.
And I think a lot of people don't realize it, but with massage, it's not just the physical that you're like getting release from, like you hold emotions in your muscles and in your body. And I think people don't even realize it because we put very little emphasis on the body
Yeah.
in our culture. And so that's where I found value for me in massages. I have some physical things going on, but mostly it's emotional stuff manifesting on physical level. So that's been very, very helpful.
It kind of helps to show in a very grounded, direct way how much everything's connected.
Yeah, it definitely is surprising. Like I still have clients like we just aren't taught that as a culture, and the clients are always surprised when that happens. Like if something comes up, they're like, oh, I got really anxious, or I had a feeling of like sadness. And it's like, yeah, that can actually happen, because when you feel an emotion, your muscles, they move and they kind of hold it because they're expecting an action to come from that feeling. Granted, in society in our day and age, there's not actions that come from the feelings. So then the muscles hold on to the feelings and the actions, and they kind of get stuck in that. especially if it's a feeling and an action that's continuously like repeated.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I mean, we're taught that our feelings are BS, that they don't mean anything, but they
Yeah.
do. They do. In fact,
They
they're
do.
even, I don't know if they're more important, but they are at least as equally important as our thoughts. And a lot of times you'll have the feeling before the thought. You know, you'll feel a
Yeah.
certain way. And so you just really can't discount them. And I think some illness comes from that, you know, just holding all that in, like you said. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, you gotta let it out.
Yeah, that is for sure. And two, in massage school, it was just so surprising. Part of massage school was getting massages almost every day from our classmates. And it was very interesting seeing the stuff that would come up for people in class, because in massage school, since we're all massage therapists, there's a little bit more space to talk about what comes up emotionally. Because in a massage practice setting, you have to be really careful to make sure that the client, because there is a power differential when you're a massage therapist and someone is a client. Sometimes the client can look up to you, and you have to be really careful about making sure that you're not therapizing them or like giving them therapy.
Right. Legality concerns
yeah.
there.
Well, legality, and also there's just some stuff that I cannot deep dive in with people because they don't
Yeah.
have the skills or tools. And so with massage school, it was really interesting because since we were all on the same level of like knowing, I guess knowing about the power differential and stuff, we were able to talk about the stuff that was coming up. So it was interesting to see how it was affecting people. Yeah, it was really interesting. It would be crazy because I noticed when people would work on my neck, I would have anxiety a lot of the times, and it turned out it was kind of connecting to a car wreck that I'd had, and that same anxiety would come up anytime someone would try to work in that area where there was tightness.
Your body had held on to that trauma.
Yeah. They go really hand in hand as well, because sometimes I may not know about an emotion that was there and I'd experience it in massage, and then I'd be able to take it to my therapist and be like, this is coming up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's real hard to get to that stuff. It's so far buried somewhere. Even,
Yeah.
you know, like, and it's just like uncovering the layers and stuff like that. And that, yeah, I think your body just holds on to stuff. At least mine does.
Yeah.
So I'm like, stop,
Everyone's
don't
does.
do that. Let it go. Let it go.
Everyone's does.
Don't need that. We don't need it. And there it comes. There it comes. So could you tell us what your definition, perspective, and/or perspective of sacred self-care, and what is it, and why is it so important? Why is this self-care thing important?
Well, when I was in massage school, we had a lot of yoga training combined with our program to make sure that we had a strong self-care component so that we wouldn't burn out when we were trying to provide care to other people through massage. And it was yoga on a level that I'd never really done before. Because I'd always done some YouTube videos on yoga. I would find like a hatha yoga to do or something like that, and then just Google it. This was a little bit more in depth. They took us through the energy anatomy and the chakra system. So it was more the esoteric parts of yoga. So through that, I kind of got to see how powerful it was to combine the energy work aspect with self-care. I got to experience kind of how, because a lot of people, when you talk about chakras and stuff, they'll be like, oh, that's some weird woo stuff. And it's like, well, it is, but it's also a really practical system to use in self-care, because you are directly using something as symbolism to access the different parts of the self. And then that's a powerful thing, because how else are you supposed to engage with that on a level that way? So through our program, I got to see how nice combining the energy work was, and I got to really get steeped in self-care. There's been a lot of, like, self-care is becoming popular now because people are actually realizing that we need it as people.
But
because before it was like, stuff it down.
We're hitting that sort of like cultural conundrum point whenever things start to get more popular. It's like, it's good because more people should know about it, but then you, like, we're in that gray area where it's like some stuff starts to muddy the waters almost, because it's like something's trendy, and then suddenly self-care means to somebody like you eat that piece of chocolate cake. And it's not that that can't be a legitimate form of self-care for some people. Like, it can't only be that either. Like, sometimes people lose sight of like the bigger picture, but I feel like what you're speaking about is a little bit more of how the bigger picture, because you're talking about how all these different systems interrelate, I guess. Knowing all the different levels.
I feel like, because for me personally, I believe that the person is a physical being, an energetic being, a mental being, like, let's see, so physical, energetic, mental, spiritual, and even like emotional. I feel like all those facets of the self are different layers, like they're definitely connected and interconnect, but I feel like the more levels that you touch when you're doing your self-care, the more deep that it's able to affect you, because you can brush the top of one layer, and if the other layer has not been touched, then there's still something down there that is going to make you feel fatigued. And sometimes different situations call for different, like, kind of like massage therapy and therapy. Like, they're different parts of the self that are being affected there, but they're very much both important. Two, so with my undergoing my massage school program, I noticed I would do some things that were self-care, and for most people, they would help them feel better, but with CPTSD, it takes a little bit more for me to actually like bring myself into a state of calm and self-care. So I would be doing these things, and I would notice that after I do it, I'd be like, wow, I was just stressed out the whole time. I didn't enjoy it, and I feel exhausted instead of recharged, which self-care is supposed to make you feel like you've been recharged or that your cup has been filled.
So I'm sorry. I don't mean to. I'm just gonna. So I totally understand that, because when I was working on, I have irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, and when I was first, I had like a crisis point where like I literally had to get. I mean, I went to live with my parents in Texas for like 5 months, and I got pulled out of my life, and I really was not functioning, and and I, along the path back to sort of functioning human, you know, I started doing, you know, I started developing my own self-care like routine, and but when I first started, nothing made me feel good. Like, I knew that like running was good for me, so I went and ran like twice a day, but I remember my brother's like, running, you feel good afterwards? I'm like, no, I feel worse. I feel terrible. But I kept doing it. You know, it was just though that I was so sick that like it took a while for some of these things, like for the yoga, for the sauna, going to the sauna, for the swimming, for the, you know, the therapy, the body work, all these things to come together and start. So sometimes it takes some time, and I can understand where you're coming from with that.
And learning to develop patience, you know, with yourself. Be like, I'm not fast enough. It's okay.
Yeah.
And in its own time. Stay the course.
Yeah. It takes time, and sometimes it, you know, some days are better than others. But
too, if your nervous system is so stressed out about being sick and all of that, it takes a lot of time to be like, this is okay, and get it into balance. And like, kind of like with continuing the self-care practices, you like reaffirm to your nervous system over and over that it's okay and that it can relax. Because at first the nervous system's like, I don't know, maybe I can't relax even though you're telling me I can. Like, I don't trust this. But as you continue on, it starts to sink in. One thing too that I think helped me a lot was kind of, I wouldn't say developing the concept, because I'm sure like it's obviously a concept that already exists, but I guess it's, for me, it was labeling it a different way. I took self-care because just self-care in and of itself was never enough for me. I decided to reframe it in my mind as something I call sacred self-care. So through massage school and deprogramming and therapy, I started to experiment more with, as I was letting go of the old religious trauma, I started experiencing and experimenting more with ritual practices, because I saw how beneficial the yoga and working with the energy body was. And so I was like, this is something. Like, these ritual practices make me feel more in my body and more recharged than I've ever really been able to feel. And it's crazy because it's something that's replicatable. Because with a lot of self-care practices I'd done before, it was just hit or miss, because it is, healing really is this like cyclical process. And some days my symptoms would be worse, and just a regular self-care thing wouldn't cut it out. Like, it wouldn't make me feel safe enough to be able to relax. So as I got more involved in the ritual practices, I was like, oh, there's this thread of commonality between each of these things that are helping me relax. Like, sometimes it would be dancing to the point of fatigue. Sometimes it would be doing those long, because we were so lucky in my massage program. We would get 3-hour long yoga classes with this one teacher that was really amazing. Yeah. It was mind-blowingly incredible. And it wasn't like flow yoga the whole time. There was a lot of like yin and restorative and meditation combined. It was just so dreamy. And I would notice, like, my brain would get in this state of like melting. Like, my body would just feel connected to everything, and my brain, the level of like intellectual, like fast critical thinking would slow down, and I could feel like my brain opening up into a different type of thinking, to where it was more relaxed and peaceful and calm. And it was really like a breath of fresh air. And I noticed that happened when we were doing these things that often combined all of the five senses, set sacred space, and pretty much anything that was done long enough to let my brain get into that like lovely, melty, relaxed state. So I was thinking about that and it was like, okay, well, these are self-care. Like, what's making them different from the other self-care that I'm doing? And then I realized, oh, it's like the sacredness of it.
That fine line between, people always talk about wanting to establish a good habit, but rituals infusing more meaning. So it's like taking it a step beyond, trying to get a good habit going. You know, sometimes people end up beating themselves up because they're like, oh, I didn't do that thing today. I told myself I was going to go for a run and I didn't, etc.
Yeah.
Actually spiral into a negative a negative kind of berating yourself. Whereas I think it's like making it more of a ritual experience, whatever the things are that you're including in your self-care is gonna set it apart in a way and make the experience start to feel like something like the dear friend you haven't seen in a while and you can't can't wait to do it, you know?
Yeah. Well, too, like the habits and the like dragging yourself down for not doing it and stuff, that's very much like capitalist patriarchy mindset. That's because a lot of people do approach self-care from that level, which is totally fine. It's probably giving you something. But for me, I've just found that ritual, like, it takes it out of that and then makes it more about pleasure and like being in the moment. And two, like there's something, so when you look at the word sacred, like pretty much sacred is taking something, making it separate. So when you make something separate, you're like making it for yourself. It makes something, instead of being a regular mundane experience, it brings it to being holy. Holy can be a triggering word for some people, but not holy in the biblical like take all the shame away from yourself and like be sad about your sins kind of way, but in a special, I keep wanting to say sacred, but that's what I'm trying to define. It's like a special, almost in being in awe kind of experience. And when you're in awe, like when you're looking at a sunset or a mountaintop, you're not trying to like be good enough to enjoy that. You just are in the moment looking at it in awe because it's sacred. And to me, like our bodies are like that. Our beings are like that, because think of all the stuff that has happened for you to even get here to begin with. Like, you deserve to revere yourself in that certain kind of way, because like we've been around for a long time, and if you're still here, like that's pretty awesome.
Been the background, it seems, to inspiring your latest endeavor. And I will say, I think it's timely too that you kind of concocted this idea in the middle of the pandemic. But you're doing your ritual bath kits that people can purchase, but they're like highly curated. Can you tell us inspired? I mean, I guess you sort of have been leading up to explaining what inspired it. What they are exactly and why you feel they're helpful for people and so forth?
Yeah. Well, for me, the bath kits really are they're about making your bath practice sacred, and kind of adding a ritual component to it, because I really feel like combining all of the five senses really helps kind of sinks you into the present moment, first of all. Second of all, it really helps make something a memorable experience, because the more sensory information that's included with a experience that you have, it's more easily translated into your brain to keep and hold as a memory. So it's kind of like, because often with trauma, there's a lot of like sensory things that are connected to your memories. Well, with this, it's kind of the same, except it's in a good way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like redirecting the sensory experience to start associating it to something positive. And can I say, I thought your bath kits looked like cool just because of the aesthetic, and you have a good knack for that. And I think, a lot of people are going to associate baths to being a relaxing and, feel good body thing. But I didn't even realize initially that you were taking that extra step to make sure that each thing that was included because of the sensory experience. And that just takes it to a whole other level of intention. Awesome.
Yeah. I really feel like, to me, if an experience doesn't touch on the five senses, like, do anything you can for self-care, but really letting the five senses be engaged in that really helps make it a beautiful experience. So these kits happen once a month.
Okay.
They're always released on the new moon, and the intention behind them is to be used on the full moon of the month. Each of the kits are curated to, I guess I would say, like, heal on a specific energetic aspect of the self. So the previous ones that we've had, I had the one right before winter happened was about grounding down and getting connected to nature and finding restoration in that. So it was about kind of being able to get that relaxing rechargedness from the earth while winter was happening. The one that I did after that was related to kind of being able to sink down in your truth and speak your truth and know what your truth is. And then I did one that was based off of the High Priestess card in the tarot. So that one was pretty much about getting connected to your intuition and learning to trust your intuition and listen to it. That one has probably been my favorite so far because it was really pretty. Like, the tea was even purple. This month, for the March full moon, is going to be a cord cutting box. So that's about letting go of old energetic attachments to people or ideas or things so that you can bring new things in. Each of the boxes have a complete ritual instruction sheet. So it lets you know how to set that sacred space up. It lets you know how to get your bath set up, and it makes it an easy step-by-step process. And then it also has some visualizations and kind of self-energy work mixed in there to walk you through a ritual to do each of the things that the box is themed around. So yeah, you usually get like a ritual instruction sheet. 2, there's always music included, because part of a ritual that feels good is getting into a light trance state, because when you do that, your brain kind of opens up. You're able to incorporate things a little bit more easily, whereas if you're in just your regular mind state, it's more of you think more critically about things and you're more likely to judge yourself or not enjoy the experience. Whereas if you're in a gentle light trance state, you have that, it's kind of a state that you get into after meditation, where you have that sense of well-being and connectedness with everything. So there's some music that's always connected to that has the ability to help you get into that state of mind to make the experience more enjoyable.
Do you get music, or how does that, is it just like a link? How does this?
It's a link. I make a little playlist.
Okay.
Custom playlist for the experience.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I'm like, you better listen to this music. People don't have to, but I'm like, please.
CD? Wait, a tape? I could send you an 8.
People
Okay.
would be like, I don't know, I can't find one. Yeah, and then I always include a correspondence card and a chakra info card. So the correspondence card, each of the ingredients in the kit is set up to be energetically and magically corresponded with the theme of the month. So I go through and I look at the correspondences of the herbs, the planetary correspondences, and I also choose herbs based on their visual appeal too, because I want it to touch on the visual, the smell, the taste, everything. So yeah, you get that information with it.
It's so nice for people to get a chance to hear this full explanation too, because it's like it goes to show that you're not just throwing a bunch of stuff in a box like here. It's like, no, every single piece has a point and a purpose that's well thought out. That's awesome.
Yeah, I have a Capricorn stellium in my chart, so it's a very Capricorn experience. But like I have a Cancer moon too, so you're gonna feel nourished. It's just gonna be a structured feeling of nourishment. Then you always get a crystal in the box. This time around, it's a selenite wand.
Selenite, yeah.
It's my favorite. Plus, these are so good at like getting the knots out of the back of the neck. I'm always
I have a heart. A heart that's selenite.
I just love how like glowy it is. Like it's just I'm always like, oh. Yeah, and it's cold. I love how cold it is. And then you always get a bath mix. This time around,
is the stone in there as kind of like a mostly for the touch sense, like the feel of it?
Yeah, the stone is both visual. Yeah, it's both visual and for the feeling. This time around, it's definitely for the feeling, and also in this kit in particular, it's about. So I think when this is released, this kit won't be around anymore because I think this is until the 22nd. But this kit in particular, the selenite wand, is used to help like clear the energetic attachments too. So it also has like the esoteric purpose as well.
Selenite is like, it doesn't. It's protecting because it doesn't. I was getting mixed up with the black tourmaline, but it doesn't like stuff doesn't stick to it or something. Like,
yeah, it's very.
It just doesn't. It's just.
It's very shiny.
like
physically, but energetically too.
Oh yeah,
like
the bad stuff can bounce off of it.
Yeah, it just feels like it creates light.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because it's so beautiful.
In the future, are you gonna because I know other boxes do this, they offer elements from past boxes. So if you missed it, just I don't know if you were ever thinking about this, like putting some of that stuff sort of up so people could just sort of buy either the whole past box or like different pieces that they're like, oh, I really wanted that and I missed it.
Yeah, not at this moment. I may in the future, but at this moment, I'm really focused on having it be a really specific, almost like
surprise,
kind of like a like a surprise, and also like a very limited experience too, because it's. I feel like these boxes are like fleeting.
No,
I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, they're very limited edition for a specific time and correlated to like with the moon's energy and all of that. Very woo. This is the
thing. Is there chamomile? I wish I could smell it.
Oh, if you put your nose close enough to the nose, you may. Can smell it. It's got frankincense in it this time around.
Those the little blobbies in there, or is it?
Yeah.
Looks like
Wow.
orange.
It's a resin. Frankincense is a resin.
Yeah, from the I think it's Boswellia or Boswellia. I don't know how to say it, but it's from that tree, and it's really good for banishing and bringing in like a really solar kind of bright
amazing.
energy. And it's got
I don't have a bathtub yet. Oh my
gosh. That's herbs, right?
I don't have a bathtub yet, but oh my gosh.
They have blow up bathtubs you can put in your shower on the internet.
Oh my god.
On the internet somewhere. They do. Some people use them. I could never live anywhere without a bathtub. It's the best place for me to relax.
It's not ideal. It wasn't my. Well, we have a bathtub.
So good.
Not good for bathing. Not good for bathing.
Yeah.
So that what you just held up is like what you would actually put into the bath?
Oh, yes. Yes, this is the bath mix. It's got elderflower in it and some salts and the frankincense and some lemon. It's really good. Yeah, there's always a bath mix included. My intention with the bath mixes is to have them smell really nice, but they use only natural ingredients. I don't use any fragrance oils. And the herbs in the bath mix are magically corresponded to the theme of the month. And I try to use really like different textures because personally I like opening the bath pouch and pouring it in. A lot of people don't like doing it that way because the cleanup can be a pain after, but I love having things to feel like texturally while I'm in the bathtub. Then you always get a loose incense, which is also magically corresponded to the theme. Pretty much everything in the box is. So yeah, there's that. It really helps bring the specific energy into the space that you need, and it connects with the smell. And smell is known to be able to trigger memories and feelings. So it's really good to have that in there. Then there's always a tea. Oh, go ahead.
Is there instructions on how to burn that?
Yes.
Okay, because I know a lot of people are not as familiar with the loose as the stick or the sage or just stuff like that. So it's just in the ritual instruction sheet, it lets people know how to burn it if they want to, or to use it as a steam, because some people with asthma cannot burn things, or if they live in apartments where burning is not allowed, or dorms. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have instructions for both the steaming and the burning, so you can do whichever works. Then there's always a tea.
I was just going to say, no one I knew set off the fire alarm accidentally with sage in a dorm.
I still do that sometimes. My roommates are like, what's on fire? I'm like, just me, it's fine. As long as it's not 5 a.m. I've learned my lesson about that. Like, maybe not when people are sleeping.
Yeah.
Never know when that fire alarm's going to go off. Then there's tea so that you can taste it. It's usually herbal teas to relax, and they often have herbal components for relaxing. So yeah, there's a flavor component, and like, who doesn't want a cozy cup of tea? Sometimes I ice it though, because hot tea can be too much when you're in a warm bath. It just depends on the tea. Then you always get, I make infused ritual oils. These are cold infused over a long period of time. I usually plan the boxes out 4 months in advance for all of them, so that I can infuse, because I feel like cold infusing gets a better smell going on, and two, you can get really all the different aspects of the plant that way. So yeah, it depends on the theme of the box. This month it's going to be a hyssop. It's going to be hyssop lemon oil, because hyssop is known for being good at like clearing, banishing, protection, and stuff like that. And then my favorite, black candles. I mean, there's not black candles in every box, just this box. but they're so cute. They
Oh,
match
is there candles
everything.
in every box, and you just change
There
the
is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they get the candle component, which is really good to create that, like, because you can, of course, have a relaxing bath with regular lights on, but I feel like having that flickering flame going on in the bath it creates just this really cozy environment. Plus, too, it brings like that element of like fire into everything, which for me is like symbolically like relighting your fire.
Yeah,
So
it's kind of charging it all up.
yeah, yeah, and it's cute. Candles are just so cute. Um, so yeah, they are a labor of love for sure. I put so much thought and effort and creativity into them, and I love it because I want the whole goal with these bath boxes is I want people to know how to create sacred space in their own bathtub, and I want them to be able to have just a beautifully curated experience without having to put in all that work of, because like it can be hard for people who are just getting into ritual practices to actually like know what to do, because it's very overwhelming the amount of information that's available. And two, like sometimes you can have rituals that incorporate like deities and stuff like that, and sometimes when you're first coming into something like that, you don't want a religious aspect to it. You want it to be more of just a personal practice. So I make sure that my kids don't have any religious aspect connected to them. It's more just purely
For the self.
what?
For
Yeah,
the self.
for the self. Yep.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
just
purely
like,
for the self.
people who, they're busy with maybe multiple jobs and kids or juggling school or, just so much.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like, yeah, oh, I wish I could do that. But they're not going to ever
Yeah.
set aside the time. And so if you're just like, here it all is, then it's like,
Yeah.
more likely.
Well, yeah. Because it can take a lot of time to prepare and think about a ritual, and to like looking up energetic correspondences can be something that's lengthy, and time into like sourcing all the ingredients and stuff. It can be a pain to put that much level of work into a bath. And that's exactly like that's part of what got me involved in the bath boxes is I would make these kits or not make these kits. I would make baths for myself, and then my friends would be like, "Oh, I want that, but I just don't have time." So I would make baths for my friends. And I even would make little kits for some of my friends to give them. But I noticed like I wanted to take it further, because those were just little things, and I wanted to make it an entire experience that someone could have without having to put much time or effort into it. Only the amount of time it takes to create that time for yourself, and that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, so 2 questions. One is about sourcing, and just wondering, like, I know that just a question about how are you sourcing your materials, and the second one is, would you think about this idea of maybe like doing some collaborations with some local folks in like the future? I know that I know I myself, I know like a lot of people make some of these items, but just some, that was just an idea that, unless you want to keep it all, I mean, which is fine if you wanted to like sort of keep it all from stuff that you do, but
I have thought about doing collaborations in the future. It definitely is probably something that I will do. My sourcing, I often get it from like the Frontier Co-op and all of that, kind of your standard natural herbal companies that have ethical sourcing processes, because that's really important to me as well. I don't want anything oversourced or anything like that. Plus, I don't want anything that children are having to source, like with my crystals. I absolutely have made sure that I am working with providers that do not hire children, that make sure that their workers are being paid a fair wage, and that provide, because a lot of times there's issues with people who are doing the mining and the polishing of the crystals. There's a lot of lung issues. So I've made sure that the people I'm sourcing from are providing the protective equipment to their people as well, instead of just leaving them to be, because that was one thing that was very like that was one thing that was very concerning for me with including crystals in my box. So I found a provider who purely source their things from Madagascar. So there's no chance of children being involved in that process, and they make sure of that. And one thing too I wanted to bring up is the part of your other question. Currently, right now, I'm making sure that I do everything, because Capricorn stellium, and I'm wanting it to be a very specific experience.
And they're awesome. I'm not.
Yeah. I do want to in the future make collaborations. I've been thinking, as these get bigger and more popular, then I'll be able to bring in more boxes and different types of boxes, instead of just doing purely a full moon box. But in the future, because I have been looking at different people's product, and I'm like, oh, that looks so nice. That'd be nice to include in the box.
Yeah, I know, makes oils.
Yeah. Maybe in the future.
Maybe.
But another thing that I wanted to bring up about sacred self-care is, for me, the experience of self-care was like, before I decided to rethink it for myself, for me, self-care was like holding a plate under a thing of water. Like, eventually the plate's going to overflow, and pretty quickly, and it doesn't really hold on to much of the good stuff. Well, for me, when I decided to start making self-care something that is sacred for me, or the word of sacred self-care, to me, that's making my experience into a bowl. So if you take a bowl and you put a soup bowl and put it under the water, you're going to be able to hold more water in the bowl. Eventually it will start overflowing, but you still get to keep more of that water and nourishment for yourself. So for me, creating that strong container of sacred space that happens when you use all of your 5 senses and you let yourself get into that meditative state, creates that really strong container to be able to hold on to the nourishment that you're trying to create for yourself. So I love these.
So I wanted to circle back to self-care briefly, because I know and step it back from the once a month ritual to possibly touch on the everyday. Because I think that when people think about self-care and start looking into them, they're like, okay, how do I do it? Like I see all these elements, I see these things, I see people say self-care, and I'm like,
do you hear the dog barking? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, a little. It's okay.
Sorry about that.
No, sorry. If everyone hears a dog, we apologize.
There's a dog. It's barking. Okay. What were you saying? Sorry.
No, it's okay. So like, and the thing also is, it's like, how do I, what is it, like, everyone's different. So not only are we talking about like how, I think we're telling people like the elements of self-care, but we're not teaching them how to put them together into like a daily practice for everybody. And for me, like I was talking about my IBS, when I first started, on my path to healing, I was developing a self-care routine, which I didn't know I was doing because nobody was really teaching me. I was just sort of, putting all these elements together, and they formed the thing that I did every day for my health. So my question is, do you have like a daily self-care like routine, and are you feel comfortable about telling us sort of what maybe you do, so that maybe some of that ideas are a little more concrete, and I can also go into what I do if someone wants like an example about, because everyone's different, so like maybe two different things. That was my question.
One thing that I try to stay away from in my self-care practice is, for me, I found out that what I would do is I would be like, oh, I have to have a routine. I have to do this. If I don't, like, oh my gosh, like nothing's okay. I can't ever keep up with anything. Well, something I learned through therapy is like when I did that, I was setting myself up for failure. So I've learned what it took for me is to create a menu for myself.
Okay.
So I sat down one day and I journaled, and I was like, what are things that really bring me absolute like recharging and pleasure? And I wrote it down based on length of time. So I started out with what I call an amuse-bouche, which in culinary speak, that's something like a one bite. It's one bite. So something that would take 5 minutes for me to do that was self-care, that would recharge. Then I went into a small plate, which would be something that took 10 to 15 minutes. And then I would do something that was an entree, which would take anywhere from an hour to 2. And I found out when I was able to write the things that I loved doing instead of what I was feeling pressured by society to do, in those ways that I could literally just look at it and choose instead of being overwhelmed, that was the beginning steps for me to be able to start a self-care practice. And then over time, it was able to develop further. So in the beginning, I would have for my amuse-bouche or my one bite, 5-minute type of self-care, it would be a qigong practice on YouTube, drinking a cup of warm tea, and then taking a walk. Or my longer ones would be like, go take a dance class, pre-COVID time, of course. Yeah, unfortunately. And then, or like go on a hike, or like for my small plate, it would be something like a yoga class, like a yin yoga class on YouTube. So that's how my self-care practices started out in the beginning. And now pretty much what I do is I think about, oh, what would I like to do that is going to like feel good to me and help me recharge? And then I do that thing, but I add something to it that touches all of the 5 senses. So if I have a cup of tea for myself now, if that's all I have time for, I will light a candle, put a crystal out that's beautiful, because that touches on the sight and smell, and the tea is taste. And then I'll have like a cozy blanket around me. And I found that really has elevated my self-care practices. Some of the longer, like more in-depth things that I do now, I will do the ritual baths. Like I'll do my own ritual baths, and that's really nice. Then something I do as well is a yin yoga class. But now, instead of just doing a yin yoga class that I found on YouTube, I will make sure that I set out a candle, some crystals, maybe like pull some tarot cards for me to have sort of a theme to focus on during the yin yoga class. And then that really like brings it full circle and gets me in the experience. Or if I'm taking a walk, I'll make sure that I'm looking at different plants and thinking about what they are instead of just being in my head the whole time.
So it sounds like you sort of maybe do something different every day, just sort of like with whatever time frame you might have. Is that?
Yes. Yeah, that's very much during times when I'm super anxious, or I have a lot of like anxiety and kind of some CPTSD symptoms coming up. I get into a more rigid schedule because it really helps me get back into my body. So then I may follow a routine that's more like get up, go on a walk, drink some water, eat some food, do a small yoga practice and some meditation. Um, but then I like more flexibility in the days that I'm not having that much of intense anxiety. Because I feel like that makes it more fun for me because I feel like with routines, I get really bored. So it keeps it novel for me and enjoyable.
Cool. Awesome.
The menu that creates like the initial sort of flexibility framework, but still a framework.
Yeah.
And then after you got enough practice with that, you could kind of start to think of those little added touches that elevate the experience. And
yeah. Because I used to just lay down and be like, oh my God, I don't know what I want to do to relax and freak out about it.
I love that. I think that's
relax.
Great. Mine sort of like I kept adding things onto it, and it sort of developed. That's how mine happened, and my daily is more rigid because I need the structure. With my ADD, and maybe it's the Libra, I don't know, because I can be all over the place. So, and it makes me feel safe. And so even though, it can get boring, I stick to the same one, and I'm basically like, get up and I do, I have a little yoga routine, and I do acupressure with some essential oils. And I used to go, I've had to adjust it due to like jobs and other circumstances. So like I used to go running or now I'm just going to try to, usually now it's like a 30-minute walk because I get a lot of exercise at work. Exercise and physical activity is like really important for me. So, and then like, things like acupuncture is once a month, and things like therapy might be once a month. And then like I used to be able to go to the Y and go to the sauna, and that was sort of like an as needed.
So nice.
I can't do it. So like that's when things were like really, really crazy. And I get in do a little swimming and get in the sauna, and it just like, the heat just gets in there and does all that work. And then also I saw someone for some body work massage, but and then I repeat. Usually I'll do yoga at night, acupressure at night, and so like mine just sort of repeats. So
I feel like too, when you're able to keep a routine that is rigid, it actually helps you have a touch point, because you like wake up and you immediately are like, oh, I'm connecting with my body. And then it really does set you up for success to have a rigid routine if your brain is nice. If your brain is nice to you about it.
My brain is overly chatty. So it's a struggle to like say, okay, we're paying attention to our body now. And, it's like a daily thing. So it helps me remember to do that, especially when there's like more going on in my life that I really like want to think about, or it's just distract me. And so I think that sort of led me to some of my illness. A part of my illness was that, where like I was not paying any attention to how I was feeling in my body at all. So so I have to learn really a lot how to do that. Like I just didn't know how to do it at all. So something that of course were not taught, and then I just never learned on my own. So that's
I've
awesome.
had the challenge of just
actually Ellen, yes.
taking that initial step to even just say it's okay to, or not that I didn't ever think it was okay to do something for myself, but it is about creating the time and a little bit of giving yourself the permission, because I'm always such a doer, and I inevitably become a doer sort of for other people too, and like that becomes not intentionally part of my identity, but it makes it harder to kind of unravel a little bit and go back into my own space and be like, no, it's okay to just go take a little time to do something for yourself and then actually see it through, you know. And it's strange, because it's like, I'm sure I'm not the only one. There's probably plenty of people out there who they're just by nature like that. It's not that anybody is putting the demands on them and asking them to do. They just kind of do. And so you end up, you know, you're responsible for yourself in that sense, to be like, okay, you know, like the pandemic, honestly, to, you know, so glass half full side of the pandemic for me has been, it's more or less forced the time to step back and be like, oh, spent so much time just sitting outside doing nothing, i.e. not doing things that you could quantify as being like productive and I'm checking this off on my list. Like, taking in the rest of life around me kind of thing. I found that has ended up being probably, in recent times, my biggest bit of self-care is just like, look at nature. What is nature doing? Nature's doing, but nature just kind of is. You know? In time. Humans overthink and overcomplicate, and if we can calm that down, it opens for more things to kind of blossom from there.
Well, too, I think that the like urge to do that you're talking about, I feel like that really comes from our society.
Definitely.
Because like we're taught if we're not productive that we don't matter, and so then we freak out if we aren't productive because we think that makes us not matter.
Right.
So it's revolutionary to like not do anything.
Yeah, exactly. And you're being, you're not doing nothing. You're sitting in the sun. You're just, that is important. That is doing you're still doing something important. Just because you're not making money, or, you know, making money for someone else, or like, I don't know, contributing into something. I don't know, like somebody's idea, like you are giving to yourself. And I remember Ellen had posted online, she made the blanket fort in her living room, like we used to do as kids.
Five senses right there.
And I was just like, this is amazing. I was like, oh, because like half the pandemic so far, I was out of work. But like this past 6 months, I've been like full-time job, first time in like 10 years. And it's been like full on. So, you know, I'm like, I just want to be in that blanket fort with the dogs and Ellen. And I don't know if you had some food, you might have. Like, it just seems so awesome. So that's another example.
Play
and pleasure is revolutionary for self-care. Like we deserve to experience pleasure, and pleasure is productive because it nurtures us as beings. Like play and pleasure is so important, and our society wants us to think otherwise, because if we're doing play and pleasure, we're not being productive for someone else, we're being productive for ourselves, and that's a big no. Exactly. I feel like it's revolutionary instead of being a big no.
I was learning to do that when I was in Texas, and I remember we were at my brother's house. We were babysitting for like, I think we spent the night with my parents, or with my parents, we babysit my nephew. So his parents can like have a day, whatever, a night away. And so we basically had a sleepover, and there were some neighborhood kids that were out like playing street soccer or whatever. And I went out and I like played with them. Like I'm like 40. I was like 40 at the time, it was like a couple years ago, and they were way younger than me. But that was so good for me to do. I was like, I want to go play. I want to do that. Like the little kid was like, I want to do that. And of course, the next morning, I ended up having some good digestion, better digestion, which because it just so that led me, so play. Yeah, I wasn't ever playing, and I remember in college too that I was hearing all this like take some time for yourself, and I'm like, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that. I literally don't know. So
you're like, okay, it's been 5 minutes. You're like, oh my gosh, that must be enough time for myself.
What does that even mean? So it's like we have these ideas, but like it's like I don't understand. So
well, I feel like too. I feel like that's another thing that makes like ritual a good component of self-care, because it does invite that aspect of play and imagination and like getting connected to, because for me at least it feels like letting my inner child play pretend and like get really connected to that playfulness and pleasure. So I feel like that's another thing too that's really important about self-care, is adding just this sweet component of playfulness and not taking yourself too seriously. Because if you start getting into that too serious state, you start like judging yourself or being like, oh my God, I'm not productive, or I don't like belong in this moment of like peace or da 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 da. But if there's playfulness, like when that comes up, you can just giggle at yourself and be like, no, silly, you're having fun right now. Like it's time to let yourself just be and kind of giggle at the capitalist mindset that's kind of like coming in to attack.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're kids, play is fine, but somehow when you become an adult, it's bad, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, being that this program is called Stories from the Earth, and knowing what you know about you, I feel like it's a relevant tie-in to ask. Amongst all this, and you've touched upon it a little bit, so maybe you can go a little more into it. How do you find ways to connect with nature, and how do you feel like these professional and creative pursuits of yours are grounded and inspired within that? Like, how do those things intersect for you?
I love nature and trees. My gosh, like trees are just, they're really my favorite. And I know that sounds weird for me to say, but like they're beautiful. And nature is always inspiring me because I see in it, I've learned so many lessons from it. I mean, starting out when I was a kid, when I was having my traumatic childhood, because I did experience a lot of abuse in my childhood, I lived in the woods. So I would run outside and play in the woods and hang out with the trees. And it just always felt like this gorgeous place for me to be, that felt safe and that felt like, because I guess it was a very big contrast to the rigid environment I had in my home, because it was very rigid, very strict. And being out in the woods, I wasn't supposed to be there. I was supposed to be playing in the front yard, but I would sneak away and run through the woods. And that just like the wildness of the woods and the beautifulness of it always has been inspiring to me. And two, like, I think that there's something important to learn from nature. Well, there's a lot of important things to learn from nature, if we're being honest. But one of the biggest things that I've always noticed about nature is the cycles that it takes. And when I was a kid, I would get to see these woods that I grew up in and that I'd run through. My dad's house was in one part of the woods, and I would have to go through the woods to my grandmother's house. It sounds very like Red Riding Hood-esque.
Yes.
And it totally was. I never saw any wolves though,
Did you
unfortunately.
have your little red cape? Obviously.
No,
Aw.
no. That would have been too witchy for them.
Oh,
But I would see these trees go through this continual cycle of transformation. I would watch them in the winter, they'd be sleepy and dead. I used to see winter before I went through all my healing practices, I would see winter as this like death, decay, really sad time as a kid. But I would see the trees just kind of be dead. And then in the spring, they would have these beautiful green shoots coming off of them that were like a vibrant green, and like energetically too, the forest would just have this like vibrating, excited feeling to it, and the dirt would be like wetter. And then we would go into summer, and I would notice like all these vines would start growing, and it felt like a jungle. And I would always I loved it most in the summer, I think, because I would feel like I was like exploring through a jungle. And then I would see fall come, and I would love like the beautiful golden colors, and then winter would come again. So seeing those cycles a lot. As a kid, I would just see them as what they were, but as an adult, I've been able to be like, oh, like cycles are sacred in life, and it's more important to do things in a cyclical nature than a linear one, because in our society a lot of things are like, oh, we've got to go from point A, point B, C, D, E, F continually until like, I mean, there's no until when it comes to our society. It just keeps going. And kind of being able to realize as someone who has CPTSD that like that type, I mean, I think even people who don't have CPTSD, like that type of linear growth is just not realistic at all.
Basically,
maybe
what
for
you're
corporations
saying is our culture and society sort of lacks the winter period. We don't have that down regenerative to spring back up. It's like go. We don't get the full.
And people just can't. I mean, I know it in myself. Like I just cannot go. And because I have a chronic illness, I can't even fake it. Like if I am pushed too far, my body will really
well, chronic illness has basically become the canary in the coal mine. It's like it takes that for a lot of people to finally go, oh, I don't have a choice but to respect the cycles.
It's like these are important.
I mean, my body was yelling at me so hard that I had to listen at some point, because I was not listening. And I you know, and I also think it's part of the culture, because it's hard to, it's just that's the mindset. And a lot of people have these a lot of people have IBS I think it's because of our culture. A lot of people have high anxiety because of our culture. It's just there are symptoms of what's going on, and the, you know, like I mean, my work is so busy, which on one hand it's really good, but like sometimes we're working 6 days. I mean, everyone's like, oh, we get more money, and I'm like, no, this is really difficult for me to do. I need 3 days off usually instead of the 2 I get. So it's just like we don't have these. It's like people are utilized as machines, and we're not that. We're an organic machine, but we're not a electronic machine that can just sort of go.
It's not a culture. I don't feel like it's a culture that's created for humans. Like humans can't do it, and the people who can do it are often not being honest with themselves. So I feel like seeing the cycles that happen in nature early on, after it took a serious injury to my chest for me to realize that I can't keep going and going and going. And seeing nature cycles again as an adult, like, reminded me, like, oh, like, huh, if nature does this and nature gets everything that it needs to get done, then why can't I? Like I mean, if you look, there's human things that have been built everywhere, and yet nature ends up taking them down eventually. And nature doesn't do that by not resting. Nature rests when it needs to rest and then goes when it needs to go, and it just does it. Granted, it doesn't have a brain to complicate things, but
right.
But it can teach us a lot. Like, even in the winter, the trees aren't dead.
No.
It took me a while to learn that. They actually, in the winter, create their sap to be a certain level so that it doesn't freeze. They go into like dormancy in a way that's exactly what they need. And that's so beautiful in and of itself. And yeah, it's been nice kind of having that as confirmation to be like, yeah, human, you're not supposed to just keep going and going. You're supposed to relax and rest and follow cycles. And two, like, it kind of makes it, because I don't feel like endeavors are supposed to just continually go. Like, I think that they're supposed to go until you've done the work that you've done and then go to something different. Especially, like, I have ADHD as well, so it's like, it's always fun to do something different, but it also gives me kind of something to go off of, because there are these cycles and different things, and things die and new things come up. And it's kind of taught me to just learn to flow with that versus being like, oh my God, this thing is ending and da 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 da. It's like, yes, I'm still upset about things when they end, but I allow myself space to be upset, but also know that like something different is coming up, because I mean, it's the way that nature is.
Nice to have to, critical, I would even say, to remember that we're not separate from nature. Like, that's the biggest.
Yeah.
It's like nature's like, remember.
It's like, I am you.
Yeah.
You're like, you are. You're like, I am you too. Too, like, in my creative work, I guess nature shows up a lot in it, which at first I didn't really think much about, because it's like, oh, it's nature, it's gorgeous, da 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 da. Of course I want to like paint and draw about it. But like, some people entirely don't paint nature, they paint people or something else like that. So then I realized I just am so inspired and connected to nature. Like, I'm so inspired by it that it does show up in my work a lot. And two, even if we think that we're just like, when you think of a forest, you have all these like backstories that come up in your brain. Like, there's been stories we've been told about forests, kind of like we were talking about Little Red Riding Hood earlier. Like, that's just another connection. So I found out, like, when I was using these nature pieces in my work, it actually is connecting to something much bigger, because we have these stories about different parts and facets of nature that we've created as people that just go on and on and on. Like the woods, like what they symbolize, or like what trees symbolize.
Tapping into some archetypes there.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, just by incorporating nature. Yeah.
It just happens. Nature's throwing itself up on a canvas. I'm like, okay, it happens.
I'm trying to show everybody. Oh, yeah, okay. Hopefully you're seeing that. This is one of Jordan's beautiful artworks.
This one's my favorite so far.
Yes. Let's see if I can. I don't know if it'll. Oh, whoops! Aha! Wrong way. Anyway.
Oh, 1 second.
No,
oh,
you're everyone's thought now. Ah! How do you work this thing? Okay. Yeah. So Should I put that back up for a minute?
Yeah, we can
Oops,
talk
now
about
that's
it.
all we can see. Hold on. Okay, show us yours. I guess. Okay. All right. Yes. So,
yeah, this is one of my recents.
Yes. And they're awesome. You also had stickers as well, holographic stickers. We have some, holographic stickers. Yay! Which they're not currently up on your website, right?
Yeah, I've let them kind of relax a bit while I've been more focused on my bath boxes. Those will probably end up kind of merging into because I used to have them under a different name. It was Botanical Moon Arts instead of Crescent Moon Healing Arts. But I think for the sake of focusing in, I'm probably going to eventually move them to my regular stuff because it's easier to take them. I think it's probably easier than having like 50 different Instagrams.
I mean, I agree. I'm keeping up with basically 1.5 Instagrams, so
yeah.
And the only reason I found it easier to do the Stories for the Earth Instagram is because we have a schedule. Like, again, structure, and for my Seawool Herbs, which is I don't know. It's neither here near there yet. It's just sort of that's very up in the air. So so I'm still working on. I don't know. I need to work on that, but
it's a lot to manage multiple things. It's like, okay, I have a lot going on. Like I forgot about that for a while. Yeah. I really love I really love using a lot of herbs in my in my art prints. Like there's this one that I did. I used mugwort.
Oh my gosh.
Because
another of my favorites.
I love it. I like it fresh, like just picking it from the ground and smelling it. Oh, it doesn't even smell that great. I mean, it doesn't smell as good dried.
Right. Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It smells very different.
Nothing smells as good as the fresh. But yeah, I have been using snakes a lot in my work. I was having a lot of nightmares as I was deprogramming some of my religious beliefs about snakes. So I've come to love them and put them in my work a lot.
Well, I love everything that you've posted on Facebook, and I can't wait for them to show back up in some form in your.
Maybe you'd find a way to like incorporate mini prints into your bath kits from the visual end of like, here's an image for you to meditate upon.
I may. I've been with this stuff with COVID, and I had to go live back at home and kind of re-experience a lot of the trauma that I experienced growing up from a different level. I've been having I've been having to work through that a lot. So my creativity as far as my bath boxes has been really up, but my artistic creativity has been kind of at a standstill while all of that is going on.
Well, it'll just, I mean, sometimes you need a break. Sometimes new stuff, like we were talking about cycles, sometimes new stuff is going to happen.
Yeah. So, plus the bath boxes, they do take up a lot of the creative energy. Yeah.
And they're awesome. So.
I love them. They smell so good.
Jordan, if you don't have anything else to add, I think we're just going to wrap up.
I guess one thing that I would like people to take away or like just, I guess, some parts that I'd like to recap on is like a self-care process is not something that is linear. Like you're not going to be able to like jump into something and be like, oh, this is great, this feels amazing, because there's often like a lot of stuff like we've been talking about, I have to be productive or I'm not worth it kind of mindset coming in that you have to work through. So whenever you're starting a self-care practice, just be like very gentle with yourself, because that sets you up for success. Like letting yourself figure out what feels good to you, because what works for one person may not work for another person. Playing around with having something that's more rigid and having something that's more flexible, because you can see what serves your needs better and what makes you feel better. And two, like, I'd really like people to just realize how important it is to see yourself as something that deserves time and space and taking care of yourself. Like, one thing that really helps me see that in myself is thinking about myself as if I'm both a small child and both the parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that gives me the ability to see myself with this level of compassion and understanding and awe, to where self-care doesn't become another excuse for me to beat myself up or anything like that. It instead becomes something that I'm nourishing myself with. And if I don't feel nourished by the same thing every day, the same way that I was before, I know that it's cyclical and it's a process. And healing is always like a spiral staircase instead of a linear journey. So just to be gentle with yourself and take time and kind of like follow the breadcrumbs of what is enjoyable and playful and pleasurable for you. And that is really what's the most important part of self-care.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna leave it there.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Jordan, where all of your links are gonna be in the description, but where can we find you?
I think the thing I'm most active on is Instagram at this moment. And it's Crescent Moon Healing Arts AVL.
Okay,
so that's
cool.
Will they see it pop up, or do I need to spell it?
No, they'll see it.
Okay.
I have it on the screen.
Alrighty.
So unless you're listening, and it'd be hard to see. But if you're listening, it's going to be there's going to be a link below, so to both your website and your Instagram. So yes.
Alrighty.
And
so if people want to subscribe to your boxes, do they
yeah.
the Instagram or to the website?
Yeah, so they can. It's probably best if they go to my Instagram and click the link in the profile, because that is where it'll be mostly. And two, you won't, if the box is not released yet, you won't see it in the links. So keep an eye out on the Instagram for that month's release date. It usually is released on the new moon. So yeah, there's a link in the Instagram profile.
Awesome. And we are stories_from_the_earth on Instagram. We are also Stories from the Earth on YouTube, and Stories from the Earth on Anchor. So you can listen to us on Anchor and watch us on YouTube. And we have a new episode the second, third, and fourth Wednesday of every month. And if you'd like to support us monetarily, just go to Anchor and click the support button, and you can support us for $1, $5, or $10 a month. So that would be, we appreciate support, because one day we are going to take this thing on the road after COVID and go traveling, and that takes some funds. So, all right. Well, I hope everyone has a lovely day, and we will see you next time. So,
go and do something nice for yourself.
That's right. Go do some self-care. Do it. Pressure. If anyone has any questions, you can contact us through Instagram or email, anything like that. If anyone wants to be interviewed, please contact us. We also have a Facebook group. I'm leaving that out. So we have a Facebook group as well. So You don't have to be an herbalist. You can just be a regular person wanting to talk about something that involves stories and the earth. So, all right. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.